Hi there, welcome to Fantasy Hub. I'm Mia, your storyteller. Today's story is filled with heartache, discovery, and a twist you won't see coming. So let's begin.
Listen closely, dear souls, for I have a story to tell you. A story about storms, not just the ones that rage across our skies, but the tempests that brew within the human heart. Sometimes, you see, the greatest hurricanes are the ones that tear through our carefully constructed lives, leaving us standing in the wreckage, wondering who we truly are. This is the story of Olivia Chun, a woman who thought she knew the weather, until life taught her that the most unpredictable storms are the ones that change us forever. It was a Tuesday morning in September when Olivia's world first began to crack. She stood before the green screen in Channel 7's newsroom, her auburn hair perfectly styled, her voice steady and professional as she delivered the morning forecast. Behind her, satellite imagery swirled with the hypnotic dance of Hurricane Miranda, a Category 3 storm bearing down on the Florida coast. Hurricane Miranda continues to strengthen as it approaches landfall, she announced, her meteorologist's training keeping her voice calm, even as her personal world was about to be shattered. Residents in evacuation zones should seek shelter immediately. The storm will change everything in its path. How prophetic those words would prove to be. As the cameras stopped rolling, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text message that would alter the trajectory of her 35 years of life. It was from her best friend, Sarah. Olivia, I'm so sorry, but I saw Marcus at the Riverside Hotel last night. He wasn't alone. We need to talk. The phone trembled in her hands. Marcus, her husband of 8 years. The man who had promised to weather every storm with her. The father who wasn't quite ready to be a father, who had convinced her to wait just a little longer for children. Now, it seemed, he had found something else to share his time with. That evening, when Marcus returned to their suburban home with its perfectly manicured lawn and white picket fence, Olivia confronted him. The truth spilled out like a dam bursting, months of deception, lies wrapped in the mundane fabric of their daily routine. He had been seeing Rebecca from his law firm. Rebecca, who was 26 and had never wanted to predict the weather, only bask in eternal sunshine. It just happened, Olivia, he said, his voice hollow with the emptiness of a man who had lost himself in his own betrayal. We grew apart. You're always so focused on your work, on your storms, and your forecasts. Rebecca. She makes me feel alive. Again. But what Marcus didn't understand, what he had never understood, was that Olivia's fascination with storms came from a deeper place. She was drawn to their raw power, their ability to transform landscapes, to clear away what no longer served and make space for new growth. She had always been waiting for her own storm to come. The divorce proceedings began like a slow-moving front, bringing with it the cold reality of dividing a life into legal documents and asset distribution. Olivia found herself alone in the house they had shared, surrounded by the ghosts of a marriage that had perhaps never been as solid as she had believed. The silence was deafening. It was during this season of solitude that Olivia's neighbor, Mrs. Elena Rodriguez, an elderly woman with silver hair and eyes that held the wisdom of someone who had weathered many storms, knocked on her door one evening. Mia, she said, using the Spanish endearment that had always warmed Olivia's heart, you cannot grieve alone. The heart needs music to heal. Come with me to choir practice tomorrow night. The Harmony Heights Community Choir welcomes all voices, especially those that have been broken and are learning to sing again. Now, you must understand, Olivia had never considered herself a singer. In college, she had been the science student who studied atmospheric pressure while her roommates went to karaoke nights. But something in Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes, something that spoke of understanding and acceptance, made her nod yes. The next Thursday evening found Olivia standing nervously outside the community center, watching through the glass doors as 24 people of various ages arranged themselves in a semicircle. Their voices rose in harmony, practicing what sounded like a spiritual hymn, and for the first time in weeks, Olivia felt something stir in her chest that wasn't pain. She pushed open the door just as the choir was taking a break. The director, an animated woman named Carol with gray curls and an infectious smile, immediately spotted her. You must be Olivia. Elena told us you might join us. We're always looking for new voices, especially altos. Do you read music? Not really, Olivia admitted, feeling suddenly out of place among these people who seemed so comfortable with their musicality. No matter, Carol laughed. The best singers sing from the heart, not from the page. It was then that Olivia noticed her, standing near the piano, organizing sheet music with careful precision, was a woman who seemed to carry stillness with her like a gentle aura. She was perhaps Olivia's age, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing a flowing Garth-toned dress that suggested someone who was comfortable in her own skin. When their eyes met, Olivia felt something shift in the atmosphere around her, like the moment before lightning strikes when the air becomes charged with possibility. "That's Isabel," Carol said, following Olivia's gaze. "She's one of our most dedicated members and quite brilliant too. She's a researcher at the university. Isabel, come meet our newest member." Isabel approached with the measured steps of someone who was naturally thoughtful, her movements graceful and unhurried. When she extended her hand to Olivia, their skin touched for just a moment, but in that moment, Olivia felt a warmth that had nothing to do with body temperature, and everything to do with recognition, the kind that happens when two cells acknowledge each other across the noise of daily existence. "Welcome," Isabel said, her voice carrying a slight accent that Olivia couldn't quite place. "I'm Isabel Moreau. What brings you to our little musical sanctuary?" "I'm—" Olivia started, then paused. How could she explain that she was running from the ruins of her marriage? That she was searching for something she couldn't name? "I'm learning to find my voice again," she finally said. Surprised by her own honesty, Isabel's smile was warm and understanding. "Ah, then you've come to the right place. Music is a way of helping us discover parts of ourselves we didn't know existed." Asterisk over the following weeks, Olivia found herself looking forward to Thursday choir practice with an anticipation that surprised her. She was discovering that she did indeed have a voice, a rich alto that blended beautifully with the harmonies Carol arranged. But more than that, she was discovering the quiet joy of Isabel's presence. They began arriving early to help set up chairs and staying late to put away music stands. Their conversations meandered through topics that ranged from the technical to the philosophical. Olivia learned that Isabel was an atmospheric physicist specializing in storm systems, a revelation that created an immediate bridge between their professional worlds. "It's fascinating," Isabel said one evening as they walked to the parking lot after practice. "How you translate complex meteorological data into language that helps people prepare and stay safe. There's something almost protective about what you do." "I never thought of it that way," Olivia replied, feeling seen in a way that was new to her. Markusha had always dismissed her work as playing with weather maps, never understanding the deeper calling she felt to help people navigate uncertainty. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" Isabel asked suddenly, then seemed to suppress herself with the boldness of the invitation. "I mean, if you have time. I'd love to hear more about your work and, well, I enjoy our conversations." Olivia felt her heart skip like a stone across still water. "I would love that." Their first coffee date stretched into 3 hours at a small cafe called the Grounded Bean, where they sat by a window watching November rain create patterns on the glass. Isabel told her about growing up in Quebec, about how her grandmother had taught her to read the sky like a book, written in clouds and wind patterns. "Grandmere used to say that storms are the Earth's way of reshuffling possibilities," Isabel shared, wrapping her hands around her ceramic mug. She believed that after every tempest, the world rearranges itself to make room for new life. Olivia found herself studying Isabel's hands, long fingers with short, practical nails, a small silver ring on her right thumb. There was something hypnotic about the way she gestured when she spoke, as if she were conducting invisible symphonies in the air between them. "Your grandmother sounds wise," Olivia said. "I think I would have liked her. She would have loved you," Isabel replied, then seemed to catch herself, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I mean, she appreciated people who understood that weather is more than just what happens outside. It's a metaphor for all the changes we experience in life." As winter settled over their city, Olivia and Isabel's friendship deepened. They began meeting regularly outside of choir practice, sharing meals and long conversations that seemed to touch on everything except the growing awareness between them, the way their eyes lingered on each other's faces, the increasingly electric moments when their hands accidentally touched while reaching for the same sheet music, the comfortable silences that felt more intimate than any words Olivia had ever shared with her ex-husband. It was during a particularly intense choir rehearsal in late December, while they were practicing the piece called "Come to the Quiet," that something shifted irrevocably. The song was a meditation on finding peace after struggle. And as their voices blended in harmony, Olivia found herself watching Isabel's profile in the warm light of the community center. The curve of her neck, the way her eyes closed when she got lost in the music, the slight smile that played at the corners of her mouth when a particular beautiful chord resolved. All of it seemed to crystallize into a moment of startling clarity. This was attraction, not the comfortable, expected affection she had felt for Marcus, but something altogether more complex and electric. She was falling for this woman who understood storms from the inside out, who sang like she was sharing secrets with the universe, who looked at Olivia as if she were someone worth discovering. After rehearsal that night, as they stood in the parking lot under streetlights that cast long shadows on the December snow, Isabel turned to her with an expression that seemed to hold a question she was afraid to ask. "Olivia," she said quietly, "I hope this isn't inappropriate, but would you like to come to my place for dinner tomorrow night? I've been wanting to cook for someone, and She paused, seeming to gather courage. "I really enjoy your company." The invitation hung in the cold air between them, loaded with possibilities that neither of them had quite spoken aloud. Olivia felt her heart racing as she realized they were standing at a threshold. She could say no, could keep their relationship safely in the realm of friendship, could continue to navigate her post-divorce life along familiar paths. Or she could say yes and step into entirely uncharted territory. "Yes," she said, surprised by the certainty in her own voice. "I would love that." Isabel's apartment was a reflection of her personality, warm, thoughtful, filled with books and plants and soft lighting that made everything feel like a gentle embrace. The walls were decorated with weather charts and botanical prints, and classical music played softly from speakers hidden somewhere among the greenery. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where storms were studied rather than feared. "I hope you don't mind vegetarian," Isabel said, moving around her small kitchen with practiced efficiency. She had changed from her choir clothes into jeans and a soft sweater that made her dark hair look almost luminous. "I make a pretty decent risotto with wild mushrooms." "That sounds perfect," Olivia replied, settling onto the couch with a glass of wine that Isabella had poured from a bottle she admitted she'd been saving for the right occasion. They talked through dinner about their work, about the unusual weather patterns they'd both been tracking, about a town called Pine Haven where Isabel had been conducting research on microclimates. But underneath the professional conversation was an undercurrent of foreignness, of two people slowly realizing that the evening was about much more than food and meteorological data. After dinner, they moved to the couch with their wine, and somehow the space between them seemed to shrink with each passing moment. Olivia found herself studying Isabel's face in the soft light, noticing details she had somehow missed before, the small freckle near her left ear, the way her eyes crinkled slightly when she smiled, the fullness of her lips when she paused at mid-sentence. "Can I tell you something?" Isabel said suddenly, setting down her wine glass with deliberate care. "Something I've been wanting to say for weeks." Olivia nodded, not trusting her voice. "I think about you," Isabel said simply, "more than I probably should, more than I've thought about anyone in a very long time. And I know you're going through a difficult transition with your divorce, and I don't want to complicate your life, but double quotes, she took a breath. I feel something between us. Something I can't quite explain or categorize, but something real." The words hung in the air like a storm front moving in, bringing with it the promise of change and potential for either destruction or renewal. Olivia felt her heart hammering against her ribs as she realized this was the moment that would define whatever came next. "I feel it too," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the soft music. "I've never felt anything like it before, and it terrifies me, but yes, I feel it too." Isabel moved closer then, slowly, giving Olivia every opportunity to pull away, to change her mind, to retreat into the safety of friendship. But Olivia didn't move away. Instead, she found herself leaning forward, drawn by something stronger than gravity when their lips met. It was nothing like the kisses Olivia had shared with Marcus or the few boyfriends before him. This was softer, more tentative, filled with question marks and ellipses. Isabel's mouth was warm and gentle, her kiss asking rather than demanding, exploring rather than claiming. They pulled apart after a moment, both breathing a little faster, both searching each other's faces for signs of regret or uncertainty. But what Olivia saw in Isabel's eyes was the same wonder she felt coursing through her own veins, the recognition that something fundamental had just shifted in the universe. I. Olivia started, then stopped, realizing she had no words for what she was feeling. I know, Isabel said softly, reaching up to brush a strand of hair away from Olivia's face. The gesture was so tender, so naturally protective, that Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes. They spent the rest of the evening talking quietly, Isabel's head eventually finding its way to Olivia's shoulder as they shared stories about their childhoods, their fears, their dreams for the future. When Olivia finally left near midnight, they kissed again at the door, longer this time, with the confidence of two people who had found something worth exploring. Asterisk, the next few weeks passed in a haze of discovery. Olivia found herself navigating uncharted emotional territory, learning the rhythm of a relationship that felt entirely different from anything she had experienced. Where her marriage to Marcus had been predictable, comfortable in its familiarity, her connection with Isabel crackled with the energy of constant revelation. They kept their relationship quiet at first, not from shame, but from a desire to protect something precious while it was still new and fragile. At choir practice, they maintained appropriate distance, though their voices seemed to find each other in every harmony, creating a musical intimacy that felt almost scandalous in its intensity. It was during this time that Isabel shared her research on Pine Haven, the small town 3 hours north where she had been documenting unusual weather patterns for the past 2 years. It's the most extraordinary thing, she explained one evening as they sat in Olivia's living room, surrounded by weather charts and academic papers. The local weather doesn't follow regional patterns. They have their own microclimate that seems to respond to, well, to human activity in ways that shouldn't be meteorologically possible. What kind of human activity? Olivia asked, genuinely intrigued by the professional puzzle. The town has these monthly community gatherings, Isabel said, pulling out a chart that showed precipitation patterns over the past year. Look at this. Every time they hold one of their ritual celebrations, it rains within 24 hours, not just sometimes. Every single time. Olivia studied the data with the trained eye of someone who had spent years looking for patterns in chaos. This is impossible according to everything we know about meteorology. Exactly, Isabel said, her excitement evident in the way she leaned forward. I think there's something happening in Pine Haven that challenges our understanding of how atmospheric systems work. Maybe it's geological, maybe it's related to the unique topography of the valley, or maybe... She paused, seeming to consider her words carefully. Maybe there are forces at work that we don't have instruments sophisticated enough to measure yet. You want to go there, Olivia said, recognizing the look in Isabel's eyes. It was the same expression she had seen in her own mirror when she was tracking a particularly intriguing storm system. I do, Isabel admitted. But I need help. I need someone with broadcast meteorologics brain who can help me document this properly. Someone who understands how to present scenic findings in a way that doesn't sound like, well, like lunacy. The invitation hung between them, and Olivia realized that Isabel was offering her more than just professional collaboration. She was asking Olivia to step fully into her world, to commit to a joint exploration that would take their relationship from the private realm into the professional shore. When do we leave? Olivia asked. They drove north on a crisp February morning, Olivia having arranged for a vacation. Time from the station for what she had described to her producer as research into unique regional weather patterns. It wasn't entirely a lie, though it certainly wasn't the complete truth either. Pine Haven revealed itself, gradually as they wound through mountain roads dusted with the last remnants of winter snow. It was the kind of town that seemed to exist outside of time, not quaint exactly, but possessed of a quality that suggested its residents had found ways of living that had been forgotten elsewhere. The town square was anchored by a gazebo that looked like it had been built in the 1890s and lovingly maintained ever since. Around it, small businesses with hand-painted signs advertised services that ranged from the practical to the mystical. Henderson's Hardware and Sacred Geometry, Mountain View Cafe and Crystal Healing, Pine Haven Community Bank, Financial Services, and Spiritual Guidance. This place is double quote of it began. Unique, Isabel finished. The people here have integrated what most communities keep separate. They don't see any contradiction between practical living and acknowledging force that can't be easily quantified. They had booked rooms at the Pine Haven Inn, a bed and breakfast run by a woman named Margaret Winters. who greeted them as if she had been expecting them for years rather than days. "You must be the weather researchers," she said, leading them up. A staircase lined with photographs of the town through different seasons. "We're so pleased you're interested in our little corner of the world. You'll find that Pine Haven has its own way of doing things." That evening, they attended one of the community gatherings Isabel had been tracking. It washled in the town's community center, a simple building that had been decorated with strings of lights and branches from local evergreen trees. About 70 people were present, ranging in age from toddlers to elders, who moved with the careful dignity of those who had seen many seasons come and go. The gathering began with a shared meal, potluck dishes that represented the cultural diversity of the community. As people ate, they shared stories about their month, celebrating success and offering support for challenges. There was no formal religious structure, no single leader directing the proceedings, but there was an unmistakable sense of intention of a community consciously creating connection. After dinner, the group formed a large circle. Margaret Winters, who seemed to serve as an informal facilitator, invited anyone who felt moved to share something with the community. An elderly man named Joseph spoke about his recovery from pneumonia, thanking the neighbors who had brought him meals and checked on him daily. A young mother named Sarah introduced her newborn daughter to the community, asking for blessings and support as she navigated single parenthood. A teenager named Alex, who was clearly struggling with some form of anxiety, was encouraged by the entire group as he shakily shared his fears about starting college in the fall. As each person spoke, the rest of the community listened with an attention that Olivia found both moving and slightly overwhelming. These people weren't just being polite. They were genuinely invested in each other's well-being in a way that seemed both ancient and radical in its simplicity. The gathering concluded with everyone joining hands in the circle and taking several moments of silence together. It wasn't prayer exactly, but it was something, an intentional focusing of collective attention that created a palpable sense of unity in the room. As they walked back to the inn under a star-filled sky, Olivia found herself processing the experience with unexpected emotions. That was ... it, she started. "I know," Isabel said softly. "The first time I witnessed one of their gatherings, I couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks. There's something happening here that goes beyond social bonding, something that creates, I don't know how else to describe it, a field of influence. And you think this somehow affects the weather?" "Tomorrow night is the next scheduled gathering," Isabel said. "Based on my data, it's shouldering within 18 to 24 hours afterward. We'll see." They woke the next morning to clear skies and a weather forecast that called for continued sunny conditions throughout the week. Olivia checked multiple sources, the National Weather Service, local radio stations, her own professional apps, and found unanimous agreement that no precipitation was expected for at least 5 days. According to every meteorological model available, she told Isabel over breakfast, there's a 0% chance of rain in the next 72 hours. Isabel smiled mysteriously. "We'll see." They spent the day interviewing longtime residents about the connection between community gatherings and weather patterns. What they discovered was fascinating and impossible to quantify. Everyone they spoke with acknowledged the correlation, but no one seemed surprised at it. "Oh yes, dear," said Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, an 83-year-old woman who had lived in Pine her entire life. "It's been that way since I was a child. My grandmother used to say that when the community comes together with pure intention, the earth responds with blessing." "But how?" Olivia asked. "What's the mechanism?" Mrs. Patterson looked at her with eyes that held decades of accumulated wisdom. "Some things didn't need explaining, child. They just need accepting." A local farmer named Robert Chun, who kept detailed records of rainfall for agricultural posts, showed them logs going back 15 years. "I started tracking it just out of curiosity," he said. "But look at these numbers. After every community gathering, within 1 to 3 days, we get precipitation. Not just a little moisture, but significant rainfall that exactly matches what our crops need at that time of year." "That's meteorologically impossible," Olivia said. "And yet it happens," Robert replied with a shrug. "I stopped trying to understand it years ago. Now I just plan accordingly." The second community gathering was similar to the first, but Olivia found herself paying different attention this time. She watched the faces of the participants as they shared and listened, noting the quality of attention they brought to each other's stories. She observed the subtle shift in energy as the evening progressed. the way individual concerns seemed to dissolve into collective support. When they joined hands for the closing silence, Olivia felt something she couldn't name. It wasn't spiritual exactly, though it had elements of that. It wasn't emotional, though emotions were certainly present. It was more like standing at the edge of a storm system and feeling the air pressure change just before the weather shifts. They left the community center at 9:30 under a star-filled sky with no clouds visible in any direction. At 3:17 in the morning, Olivia was awakened by the sound of rain against the windows of her room at the inn. Not just a light drizzle, but a steady, soaking rain that sounded like it intended to continue for hours. She found Isabel already awake in the hallway, holding a cup of tea and wearing an expression that mixed vindication with wonder. Every weather model was wrong, Olivia said. Every conventional weather model, Isabel corrected gently. But what if there are variables we're not measuring? What if human consciousness, when focused collectively with genuine care and intention, can influence atmospheric conditions in ways we don't understand yet? They stood together listening to the rain, two scientists grappling with data that challenged Derry. They felt they knew about cause and effect. Their time in Pine Haven extended from a planned weekend visit to nearly 2 weeks as they documented phenomenon after phenomenon that defied conventional meteorologicaliton. They interviewed residents, recorded weather data, and attended 3 more community gatherings, each of which was followed by precipitation that perfectly matched the town's agricultural and environmental needs. Olivia found herself changing in ways that went beyond her growing relationship with Isabel. Something about Pine Haven's approach to community, their integration of practical and mystical thinking, their willingness to accept mystery without needing to control it, was shifting her understanding of how life might be lived. But their peaceful research was interrupted when Olivia received a series of increasingly crisp phone calls from Marcus. "What the hell are you doing up there?" he demanded during one late-night conversation that woke her from sleep. "Sarah told me you're running around some hippie commune with some woman doing what, chasing ghosts?" "I'm conducting legitimate meteorological research, Marcus," Olivia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Not that it's any of your business anymore." "It is my business when my ex-wife is making a fool of herself and potentially damaging her career," he shot back. "Do you have any idea how this looks? You're disappearing to some mountain town, consorting with ... with whatever that woman is to you." Olivia felt something crystallize in her chest. "Whatever Isabel is to me, she's more genuine supportive than you ever were, and my career is mine to manage." "We'll see about that," Marcus said, and hung up the next morning. Isabel received a call from her department head at the university. Somebody had filed a complaint questioning the validity of her research, suggesting she was pursuing unscientific pseudo-research that brought the department's credibility into question. "They won't say who filed the complaint," Isabel told Olivia, her face pale with worry. "But the timing is suspicious. The department is putting my research under review, which means I could lose my funding, my position, everything I've worked for." Olivia felt rage building in her chest like a gathering storm system. Marcus was attacking Isabel to get to her, using his legal connections to undermine the woman she was falling in love with. "We document everything," she said firmly. "We make this research so solid, so thorough, light documented, that no one can dismiss it as pseudoscience. We turn this into the most rigorous scientific study possible." "How?" Isabel asked. "We bring in more researchers. We contact meteorologists, atmospheric physicists, anyone with credibility who might be interested in unexplained weather phenomena. We turn this into a collaborative study that involves multiple institutions, and if that doesn't work..." Olivia took Isabel's hands in her own, feeling the familiar electricity that still sparked between them with every touch. "Then we trust that truth has a way of surfacing, even when people try to bury it." Over the next month, Olivia and Isabel worked with an intensity born of both passion and necessity. They reached out to contacts in the meteorological community, sharing their preliminary findings and inviting collaboration. To their surprise, several researchers expressed interest in what they were documenting. Dr. Amanda Foster from MIT's Atmospheric Science program agreed to review their data. "I've seen similar anomalies in other locations," she told them during a video call. "Usually they get dismissed because they don't fit our current models, but that doesn't mean they're not real. It just means our models are incomplete." Professor James Nakamura from the University of Colorado, offered to provide additional instrument for more precise measurements. If you're documenting genuine correlations between human social behavior and microclimate variations, he said, this could revolutionize our understanding of atmospheric dynamics. As their research gained credibility in academic circles, Olivia found herself facing a different kind of challenge. Her producer at Channel 7 had heard rumors about her alternative research project and was pressuring her to return to regular duties. Look, Olivia, Janet Morrison said during a tense phone conversation, you're a talented meteorologist, but the station needs you here doing actual weather forecasting, not chasing theories about magic rain dances. This is legitimate scientific research, Olivia replied. Research that could potentially improve our ability to predict local weather patterns. Research that's making you look like a flake, Janet shot back. Your ex-husband called the station, Olivia. He expressed concern about your mental state, suggested you might be having some kind of breakdown after the divorce. Olivia felt the walls closing in around her. Marcus was systematically attacking both her professional credibility and Isabel's, using his legal connections and social influence to undermine their work. That evening, as she sat with Isabel in the cozy living room of the small cabin they had rented in Pine Haven for extended research, Olivia felt the weight of everything they were fighting. Maybe I should go back, she said quietly. Maybe I should return to the station, do regular weather forecasting, stop causing problems for your career. Isabel looked up from the research notes she had been organizing. Is that what you want? I want ... Olivia paused, realizing she was about to voice something she hadn't fully admitted to herself. I want to be with you. I want to continue this research. I want to understand what's happening in this town, and I want to figure out how to build a life that feels authentic to who I'm becoming. Then that's what we do, Isabel said simply, together. Even if it means losing everything we've built professionally. What's the point of professional success if it requires us to deny what we've discovered? What we've discovered about the weather and what we've discovered about ourselves. Asterisk word of their research had spread through Pine Haven and the communities. Response represent them both. Rather than feeling studied or observed, the residents embraced their presence and their work. Margaret Winters organized a town meeting where Olivia and Isabel could present their preliminary findings to anyone who was interested. Nearly 100 people showed up on a Tuesday evening in March, filling the community center beyond capacity. Olivia, who was accustomed to presenting weather forecasts to television audiences, found herself nervous in a way she hadn't expected. These people weren't distant viewers. They were the subjects of her research, and their opinion of her work mattered in ways that went beyond professional validation. Isabel presented their data with scientific precision, showing charts and graphs that documented the correlation between community gatherings and subsequent precipitation. But it was when Olivia spoke about what they had witnessed that the room became completely silent. What we've observed here challenges conventional meteorological understanding, she said, looking out at faces that had become familiar over the past month. But it also suggests something beautiful about the relationship between human community and the natural world. You've created something here that most places have lost. A genuine connection not just with each other, but with the environment that sustains you. An elderly man named Samuel raised his hand. What does this mean for us? Will this attention change how we live? It was Isabel who answered. That's entirely up to you. Our role is to document what we observe, not to interfere with how you choose to live. But I will say this, what you've created here offers hope for other communities struggling with both environmental challenges and social disconnection. After the presentation, people lingered to ask questions and share stories about their experiences in Pine Haven. Olivia found herself in conversation with Sarah, the young mother she had met during their first community gathering. I came here 5 years ago, Sarah said, bouncing her now crawling daughter on her hip. I was running from an abusive relationship, pregnant and scared and certain I'd made a terrible mistake, leaving everything I knew. This community saved my life, not just practically but spiritually. They showed me what it looks like when people genuinely care for each other. And the weather connection? Olivia asked. Does it feel real to you? Sarah laughed. Honey, I've lived in a lot of places, and nowhere has the rain come exactly when the garden needs it like it does here. We don't question it. We just say thank you. Spring came early to Pine Haven that year, with wildflowers blooming in March and temperatures reaching the 70s by the first week of April. Olivia and Isabel had been living in the mountain town for 3 months. their research having evolved into something more like a residency. The university had reinstated Isabel's funding after reviewing her meticulously done findings, and several news outlets had picked up their story, though they had been careful to frame it as exploring unusual weather patterns rather than making claims about consciousness affecting climate. Olivia had resigned from Channel 7, a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. She was freelancing now, writing articles about weather and climate for various publications while continuing her research with Isabel. Money was tighter than it had ever been, but she felt more alive than she had in years. It was during the April community gathering, their 13th since arriving in Pine Haven, that something shifted definitively between them. They had been sharing a small cabin for months, their relationship deepening daily as they worked side by side, but there had always been an element of temporariness to their situation, as if they were both waiting to see what would emerge from the uncertainty. That night, as the community gathered for their monthly ritual of sharing and connection, Margaret Winters invited Olivia and Isabel to speak about what their time in Pine Haven had meant to them. Isabel stood first, her voice clear and steady as she addressed the circle of faces that had become like family to them both. "When I first came here, I was looking for scientific data," she said. "I wanted to understand how human behavior might influence local weather patterns. What I found was something much more profound. I found a community that lives according to principles most of the world has forgotten: genuine care for one another, respect for natural cycles, and faith that our actions matter in ways we might not fully understand." She paused, looking directly at Olivia with an expression that seemed to hold their entire journey together. "But more than that, I found love. Not just romantic love, though that has been a gift beyond anything I imagined possible, but love for a way of living that integrates science with mystery, practical action with spiritual awareness." When it was Olivia's turn to speak, she found herself looking around the circle at people who had welcomed her, not just as a researcher, but as a person seeking her own weather patterns off heart. "A year ago," she began, "I thought I knew who I was. I was a meteorologist, a wife, someone who predicted storms from the safety of a television studio. Then my marriage ended, and I discovered that the most powerful storms are the ones that happen inside us. The ones that clear away everything we thought we knew about ourselves to make room for who we're actually meant to be." She reached for Isabel's hand, no longer caring who saw their connection. "Isabel, you've taught me that love isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create together, like weather systems forming from the interaction of different atmospheric conditions. And this community has shown me that the most important scientific discoveries aren't just about understanding how the world works, but about discovering how we might live in harmony with forces larger than ourselves." She took a breath, feeling the attention of the entire gathering focused on her words. "So I want to ask you something in front of these people who have become our extended family," she continued, turning to face Isabel fully. "I want to ask if you'll marry me, not because we need a piece of paper to validate what we feel, but because I want to make a public commitment to building a life together, to continuing this research together, to weathering waiter storms come our way as partners, in every sense of the word." The community center fell completely silent for a moment that seemed to stretch on forever. Then Isabel's face broke into a smile that could have powered the entire town's electrical grid. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I'll marry you." The gathered community erupted into cheers and applause, and several people were crying, including both Olivia and Isabel. Margaret Winters stood up and announced that this called for an immediate celebration, and within minutes, the entire gathering had transformed into an impromptu engagement party. Asterisk. 2 years later, Olivia stood on the deck of the house she and Isabel had built on the outskirts of Pine Haven, watching the morning sun burn off the mist that clung to the valley below. Their book, The Pine Haven Effect, Community, Consciousness, and Climate, had been published by a university press and was being read by atmospheric scientists, sociologists, and community organizers around the world. More importantly, similar weather patterns had been documented in 3 other communities that emphasized collective intention and environmental stewardship. What had started as unexplainable anomalies was beginning to look like a pattern that suggested new possibilities for how human consciousness might interact with natural systems. Isabel emerged from the house carrying 2 cups of coffee and the newspaper, which featured a front-page story about their research being cited in a United Nations report on community-based climate adaptation strategies. "Any regrets?" she asked, settling into the chair beside Olivia's and handing her the steaming mug. Olivia considered the question seriously. They lived more simply now than either of them had before. Their income was modest, their professional recognition came from special educated circles rather than mainstream media, and they had chosen to build their life in Asmal Mountain Town, where the nearest mall was 2 hours away, but she woke up every morning excited about the day ahead. Their research continued to reveal new mysteries about the relationship between human consciousness and natural systems. The community they had joined continued to nourish and challenge them, and their marriage had become the kind of partnership she had never imagined possible, built on shared curiosity, mutual respect, and the daily choice to support each other's growth. No regrets, she said, reaching for Isabel's hand. Sometimes the most important discovery happen when we stop trying to predict the future and start paying attention to what's actually happening around us. Above them, clouds were gathering for the afternoon rain that would water the community gardens and fill the reservoir that supplied the town's water. According to convention almatory, there was no reason for precipitation today. But Olivia had learned to trust patterns that couldn't be measured with instruments, and she knew that by evening the earth would be blessed with exactly the moisture it needed. She had discovered, finally, what it meant to live in harmony with storms rather than in spite of them. And in the process, she had found not just love, but herself.